questions connect. Asking questions connects you with the audience. The problem is if you ask the wrong question at the wrong time, not only doesn't it connect, it also disconnects you. It separates you from the audience. Questions connect. Asking the right question will connect you with the audience. Problem is, asking the wrong connection actually disconnects with the audience and pushes the audience away. This is something that I didn't realize when I was starting out and speaking. Didn't understand it until I had given a speech, and then Bob, brown-haired guy, medium height, professional speaker, really knows his stuff. Kind of my mentor. Said, "Tim, what were you doing out there?" I said, "Bob, I was just asking questions, connecting with the audience." "Tim, those weren't the right questions. I just separated. I just separated from the audience." "Bob, you mean there are wrong ways to ask questions?" "Yeah, Tim, there really are wrong ways to ask questions, and you kind of demonstrate a lot of those problems." And right then I learned that there was a wrong way to ask questions. But asking the wrong question can just ruin everything in your speech. So when you ask questions to the audience, you want to make sure that there are certain things that you're doing the right way. The problem is, most speakers don't know what the right way is. Just start asking any questions that come to their mind, just right on the top of their head. And because it doesn't really have to do with the speech, doesn't really relate to it, doesn't really work into the speech, the question actually derails them from what they're talking about. And all of a sudden, what they're talking about is they've got this question and they've got to kind of pull the audience back from the question. So it's important in asking questions to understand the way to ask questions. There is a way, there is a format, a method of asking questions. It's going to get the results you want. Don't use the formula, that's fine. But you're going to find out those questions take you in all sorts of bizarre places. You ever had an audience run away from you? I mean, not physically. Maybe you have? No, probably not. I don't mean physically run away from you. Ever had an audience just run away from you because of the questions you were asking? You asked questions and gradually got further and further away from the point, and then you didn't know what the heck was going on. And the audience just kept on talking, and they say, "Well, great question. I got another question. And here's another answer." And finally, the audience started taking over. The audience ran away with what it wanted to talk about, and you were over here trying to say, "Wait a minute, this is what we're talking about here." Have you had that happen? Well, if so, you know that challenge of questions. The wrong question disrupts everything. So today, you're going to learn about questions. How to answer a question, how to say a question, how to answer a question, also how to say a question in a way that really works. And the three basic things you have to understand if you're going to do effective questioning. Find out about the mistakes most speakers make and why they make those mistakes. Find out how you don't have to make that mistakes in questioning. And you learn some other things about questioning, about the importance of questions, the value of questions, how they really can pull the audience into speech, and why it's so important for the audience to be pulled into your speech. So I'm going to start out talking about the big picture of the question, and gradually kind of focus in on how you really use that. So big question about, okay, how does the question work in the first place? And then gradually focus in, okay, well, what do you do with the question once you have it? How do you use it in a way that really is going to help you with your speech? And then finally, how do you fine-tune that question in such a way that's going to help you? So instead of the audience wandering off, completely lost and doing their own thing, you're going to find those questions help you zero in, focus, and really get down to what the speech is all about. Yes, questions connect, but the question done wrongly disconnects. So it's very important when you're questioning to make sure you have a question that's making that connection. The first thing to realize is this. Have you ever heard a speech? There's a question at the beginning. Maybe it's a question like, when you're out shopping and you're thinking about what day it is and what time it is and wondering about which particular items to purchase, is this something that really comes through your mind? Maybe you think about, as I do, things about the previous year, things you might have done but didn't do. Or do you perhaps think of something else better, or something else different, or something different yet still better? Or do you not do that? Probably you've never heard a question like that. But unfortunately, many speakers tell questions almost that complex, and the whole audience is thinking the same thing. Huh? What? What the heck is that? What am I supposed to answer? What's going through my head now? The lesson is keep it simple. Something Bob drilled into me. Keep those questions simple. Short, simple, easy to understand. So very, very important. If you have this question that kind of gets out of control, and it happens, and the question just kind of drags on and on and on, and people can't really figure out what really is the question, then people start wandering in their own directions. The problem about a complex question is people will go into places you don't intend them to go. You have a question about trying to improve their life. You ask, say, what did you do the previous year to bring this out? Well, let's see, last year, gee, I was going through, I had a nice vacation that year, didn't I? Oh, it was great. Well, I remember I went to the Bahamas. Oh, it was warm in the Bahamas. It was just great. I wonder if I go to the Bahamas next year. Probably out of the budget. The whole audience just starts wandering. Each one goes in a different place. One goes to the Bahamas maybe. Last year? Oh, man, I didn't like last year. Had to foreclose in the house. Well, what a mess that was. Gee, maybe I better refinance now. Someone goes over the house thing, and pretty soon the audience is going all over the place. That's why keep the question simple. Very simple, very focused, and then people aren't going to wander. Now, the question may be complex, but keep the question simple so people at least can understand. So it could be a very question that doesn't really take a lot of thought. You could say something like, do you drive a car? Very simple. Very straightforward. Do you drive a car? Yes or no? No problem. Okay, great. Or the question could be bigger question, but still simple. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Bigger question, but simple to understand. Simple is so important. Questions connect, and when questions are simple, they connect instantly. So keep that question simple. Just something short, easy to understand. People can say, okay, I get it. Either, oh, I drive, yeah, I drive a car. Okay, that's me, I drive a car. What am I going to do the rest of my life? Well, think about that, geez. But keep the format of the question simple. People very easily can get it. Okay, all right, that's it. All right, great. So already, by keeping the question simple, you've increased the chance of the audience connecting. But there's still something else to do. Questions connect, and simple questions connect very well, but there's something still missing. Something that if you really don't do it, it just doesn't, the question doesn't quite work because, well, there's a basic problem. You got this simple question, great. No problem about that. No issue with it. Question's very simple. Okay, audience is thinking, all right, got it, okay, that's the question. But that question raises another question in their mind. Another question comes up in the audience's mind, and it's important to make sure you address that question also. Once you've asked that simple question, that's great. But the audience has another question that just kind of popped up in their mind. Most people in the audience aren't even aware of the question. Not really aware of it all. But it's a question that really will determine how well that question connects. Questions connect, but if you don't do them the right way, they can disconnect. Don't want that to happen. Make sure you answer that question, say that question the right way. And the most important thing to think about the question is the response. The response. Bob taught me about the importance of response. In other words, make it clear to the audience what sort of response you want. And there are different ways to do that. One great thing is the pause. To make it clear what sort of response you want, it determines by the pause after the question. The longer the pause, the more you want the audience to kind of wait a little bit and think about things. The shorter the pause, the clearer it is, they're supposed to answer quickly. So, you say, all right, do you drive a car? Okay, I got some car drivers. Probably going to get instant response. Hands are going to shoot up. Do you have a car? Yeah, all right, great, got some car drivers. Great, you drive a car. Okay, people drive a car. Or keeping it you focused, you drive a car. All right, fine. However, some questions take a little bit more thought. Like that question, what are you going to do the rest of your life? So if you're asking that question, you'd say, all right, what are you going to do the rest of your life? It's a big question, right? Exactly. Notice the long pause. And notice afterwards, to make it clear that that was the right response, and that thinking response, the response I wanted, I said, hey, it's a big question. What you say after the question can also help with that, getting that response. So you get a pause, and then you say, okay, we got some car drivers. Great. I say, oh, okay. That's what got out of it. Car drivers, I get it. There are car drivers here, okay, ready to go on. On the other hand, if you say, what are you going to do the rest of your life? It's like, oh, big question. Big question, yeah, all right, fine. I got to think about that one a little bit. And everybody here is thinking about it a little bit too. Giving the audience hints about the response also gives the audience permission and lets them know they're doing the right thing. You're basically saying, yeah, that's it, you're doing it, that's right, great. You're doing well. Giving the audience the right response helps praise the audience. And you want to praise the audience when they're doing the things you want them to do. So by getting that response, great, you make that question connection, which is great. And then you say, okay, all right, got the response, and now that's where it goes. Which brings the question of, where does it go? You got the response, fine, now what? And that's an issue the audience has too. Well, now what? Okay, we got the response, all right. And that's that important third part. Once you get the different parts going, then it's that through. Okay, you got a response. Response is very important. You let the audience know, all right, this is a response I got, this is a response I wanted, you're doing great, we're on target, okay, fine. And now the audience is, okay, thinking, all right, well, okay, I answered this question, and now what? You ever been at a presentation, speaker is asking questions, and you think, why are they asking these questions? Well, that's a speaker who didn't understand the third part, the third final part, so important in making that question connection. All right, you're almost done. You've almost made that connection. There's one last thing to do. One last thing to do, which many speakers don't, and because they don't, that's where the speech really starts to wander. They don't get that last thing in there, so the speech just kind of falls apart. The last thing, important thing to remember is to apply. Apply. You want to apply the answer to that question into the speech you're talking about. If you're asking a question about, hey, how's your life going? And you say, well, the other day I was driving my car, and it's a really great car, and we're coming along, and maybe think, okay, how's your life going, and you're driving a car? All right, maybe there'll be a connection here somewhere. That's the thing. Get the audience to do things. You got them great, fantastic. You're praising them. You're saying good response. Then apply that into your speech. Some reference to what the audience did to pull it in. So you say, you drive a car. Okay, got some car drivers. I drive a car too. The other day I was driving my car. No problem. Now the audience says, oh, okay, great. So we got this connection made, fine. I get it. You drive a car, I drive a car. So when the audience is hearing the story, they hear it as if they're driving their own car. So right at the beginning you say, okay, you got cars, they're thinking about their cars, all right, and then you talk about your car, and they're thinking about your car in terms of their car. Is that confusing? Does that make sense? The idea is these questions get the audience thinking about your speech, but thinking about your speech in terms of them. Think about it, it'll become clear. This question taps into your audience world, and then you talk about your car, and they're thinking of their car, and that draws that connection. So it becomes very personal for them. But only if you apply it to make that question connection. Very important to apply. Now the other example, talking about what are you going to do the rest of your life. So what are you going to do the rest of your life? Yeah, it's a big question. It's a question you may be thinking about now. It's a question, now that I'm getting older, getting closer to retirement, I'm starting to think about that. What am I really going to do the rest of my life? Same sort of thing. In this case, you've got a big question. Make it, okay, great, the audience has responded. Now you apply it. Okay, this speech is going to be about that thing. About what are you going to do the rest of your life. About that search for meaning. That's what the speech is going to be about. But it's important to apply the answer to that question in the speech. If you don't do that, if you don't apply the question, you say, hey, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And well, I was having a cheeseburger the other day. I really like cheeseburgers. They're just so tasty and got that great cheese in them. And they're just, I tell you, I could have a cheeseburger right now. Audience is thinking, wait a minute, rest of my life, you're having a cheeseburger. I don't see where this is going. The problem is if you don't make that question connection, the thing that Bob drilled into me is that if you don't make that question connection, the audience checks out right then. The question, you don't apply the question to what you're talking about, the audience thinks either I missed something, in which case I just ignore it, or I didn't miss something and the speaker has no clue what's going on. Nevertheless, that's it. The audience just gives up. At that point, the audience just gives up on understanding. The audience thinks, well, I'm never going to understand what the connection is between the rest of my life and his cheeseburger, so I'm not going to try. That's where that disconnect happens. That's where that question connection just doesn't happen. But if you apply it, say, okay, what are you going to do the rest of your life? Big question, isn't it? As I've gotten older, I'm starting to think about this more. What am I going to do the rest of my life? That'll make it. Remember, making that question connection to apply the question to your speech. Questions connect. Problem is, if you ask the question the wrong way, they can disconnect. If you keep in mind a simple 3-step process, you'll make sure that question connection happens. And the first thing is to keep the question simple. Long, run-on questions that go on and on doesn't help the audience. They get confused and they just drop the whole thing there. Keep the question simple and to the point. Do you have a car? Simple. The whole audience can understand it. Even if the question is something that goes into deeper issues, the question itself is simple. What are you going to do the rest of your life? Deeper question, but simple, easy to understand. Keep that question simple. Next, response. Make it clear to the audience what sort of response you're looking for. The more complex the question, the more pause you have after the question. So if you're just asking, do you have a car? Yeah, I got a car too. Small response. Small response. And then right after is, hey, yeah, I got some car lovers out here. I've got a car too. Let that response know, the audience know with that response that you're doing the right thing. And bigger questions, longer pause. What are you going to do the rest of your life? It's a big question. Let the audience know, hey, it is a big question. It's okay. Think about it. Take some time. It's all right. And make it clear in your response that, hey, that's a big question. And but for the one with the car, not a big question. Hey, I got a car too. Very light. No problem. And the final thing, to make sure that question connects, make sure those questions work, is to apply. Apply. Remember to apply the question you have to the speech you're giving. There should be a direct correlation between the speech you're giving and the question you have. So the question leads into the speech. You have a question about, hey, do you have a car? Yeah, a lot of car lovers out there. I got a car too. And I was in my car and it started me thinking about, okay, great, got it. Questions about a car. Fine. Question is applied in the speech, no problem. So what are you going to do the rest of your life? It's a big question. Big question I started thinking about too. What am I going to do the rest of my life? Then apply that question into the speech. Here's the question. Get the answers, get the thoughts of the audience. You don't have to say them out loud, just the thoughts of the audience. And then take that energy and apply it in the speech. Make sure you apply. You might be thinking, Tim, I don't know. This whole question thing and questioning connection, it's just a kind of hack rote thing that people do. It's just a thing people do to try to make a connection with the audience. You know, it's stupid. To that I say, okay, you think it's stupid to make a connection with the audience. Think it's stupid to question. Don't ask the questions. That's fine. Don't ask the questions. And you'll discover that the audience isn't involved. They're not interested. And the further you go in the speech, the less interest they have in it. Or you can learn to ask those questions. Make those questions connect. Simple. Apply. Simple, response, and apply. Those three things, simple, response, and apply, and you make that question connection. Once you make that question connection, discover that you're in charge up here. You're big and in charge, you bet, yeah. All right, it's an easy connection. Boom. Just like that. Just like that. Simple, response, apply. Simple, response, apply, and make that connection. And it's a process. Simple, response, apply. Do those three things, and the connection starts to happen. And then And you start to enjoy, your audience starts to enjoy what's happening on. It becomes fun to do the speech. It just becomes a great time to do the speech and get there, out there, in front of the audience. So, next time you're giving a speech, you're wondering how to make that connection with the audience, just remember, make a question connection.